before I turn things over to Mike. Let's start with Leona. And it looks like Leona might be having some connectivity issues, so let's start with Yvonne.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Yvonne Denome, and I apologize for the link issue this evening. Courtney?
Sorry. I'm trying to turn everything on. Good evening, everyone. I'm Courtney White. I'm a new ed specialist with Title I office, and I'm excited to be here with you all this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gina Toller, and I am the Title I educational specialist, and I am glad to see everyone here this evening.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Felder. I'm the other educational specialist in the Title I office, and I'm happy to see you all here today for our first meeting together.
Thank you, Title I team. Go ahead.
Andrea?
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be able to join. Thank you so much for having me. And it's so nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Title I team. Did I miss anyone? And I know we have some principals with us this evening. And before I officially turn things over to Mike, can we have our principals introduce themselves and just pop in and say hi? Ellen?
Hi, good evening, folks. Ellen Mukai, the principal at Brookfield Elementary School, and I'll pass the baton to Felicia Usher.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Felicia Usher. I'm the principal at Weyanoke, and I'm excited to be here again this year.
All right, thank you. How about Kathleen?
Hi, everyone. Kathleen Sane. I am the acting principal at Lynbrook Elementary School. It's great to see everyone this evening.
Thank you for being here. And I'm quickly trying to scroll down the list. So if we have other principals with us this evening, can you please pop in real quick? I don't want to miss anybody. And the list is long tonight. Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our fearless leader, Mike Waltz.
Thank you, Kathleen. I know we kind of did it, but since we were split up, we're just going to go through everybody since we are not in one place. We think we should still introduce ourselves to each other. I'll be very brief. I'm Mike Waltz, and I represent Belvedere Elementary, the chair of the. We can do the alphabetical order going down. I think Abby Jenkins is the first.
Hey, sure. I'm Abby Jenkins, Woodburn Elementary, with a 3rd grader and a 6th grader. Great to be here. It's my first TPAC meeting.
Hello, my name is Carla Graham. I have a 2nd grader at Mount Vernon Woods Elementary School. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, my name is Alicia Nault. I am with Clearview Elementary, and I have a 2nd and a 5th grader, and this is my first TPAC meeting.
Hi, this is Corey Pena. I have a 2nd grader at Woodlawn Elementary. This is also my first TPAC meeting.
Hi, this is Kristen Sharkowski. I have a 5th grader at Center Ridge Elementary, as well as an 8th grader at Liberty Middle School, the librarian at Center Ridge. This is my first TPAC meeting.
Hi, this is Christina Lopez. I'm with Forest Elementary School, and I have a first grader and a sixth grader. And this is also my first meeting.
Good night. Good evening. My name is Danusa de Moraes. I have a fifth grade son at Dogwood Elementary School.
And I'm Ho, her husband. I'm part of the executive board, but also here for help. Same kid at Dogwood.
Good evening, everyone. I am Deshawn Monique. My first time here, glad to be here. I have a second and fourth grader at Wayanoke Elementary.
Hi, I'm Emily McKenna. I hope you all can hear me. I have a low connection, but I am representing London Town. I have a third grader, and this also is my first TPAC meeting. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Farah Ahmed. I have a fourth grader at Belvedere Elementary School.
Hello, everyone. I'm Felicia Wilson. I am a Head Start teacher at Mount Eagle Elementary, and I also have a first grader there.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Hale. I am a third grade teacher at Wayanoke Elementary School, and I'm also the teacher liaison on the executive board for TPAC this year.
Hi, my name is Holly Griffiths. I have a kindergarten student at Graham Road Elementary, and this is my first TPAC meeting also.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cara Danner. I've got a second grader at Pine Spring Elementary and an eighth grader at LJ, and I am the middle school liaison on the exec board.
We have Kim or Lily up next.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Bailey. I am a parent of a second grader and a fifth grader at Sleepy Hollow Elementary.
Hi, I'm Lily Pooh. I am a parent of a fifth grader in Glen Forest Elementary School, second year doing TPAC, first time doing it virtual. Thank you.
And Leslie, I don't want to skip you. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Leslie. This is my first TPAC meeting, and I've got a third grader at Bailey's Upper.
We have Linda, then Luis.
Sí, sí puede quitar el micrófono y yo le traduzco.
Mi nombre es Linda Viviana Martínez. Soy mamá de una niña de quinto grado de la escuela Providence Elementary School.
She is Linda, and she is the mother of a girl in fifth grade in Providence Elementary School. Oh,
Good
I'm
evening.
sorry. I'm sorry, is Luis Mejia?
Yeah. Good evening. This is Luis Mejia. I have two sons at Woodley Hills Elementary, and this is my first TPAC meeting.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marta Siles. I have two children, one in third grader and one in fifth grader at Parkland Elementary, and this is my first TPAC meeting.
I think Miguel, then Monica.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Miguel Mijango. This is my first time on the TPAC meeting. I have a second grader at Lynbrook Elementary School and a eighth grader at the Key Middle School, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Monica Sanchez. I have a sixth grader in Groveton Elementary. It's my first feedback meeting too.
Hi, this is Nicola Hamilton. I have two kids at Forest Edge in second grade and fifth grade. I also have a seventh grader at Langston Hughes.
I am Nina Nasfa bin Ghanem, and I'm the vice chair of the committee, and I have one child at Timberlane Elementary School.
Hi everyone, I'm Samson Ado. I have a sixth grader at Riverside and a fourth grader at the same school. A member of the executive committee, executive board. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Sana Aftab. I have a second grader and a third grader at Brookfield Elementary.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Murphy and I am representing Herndon Elementary where I have a kindergarten student and a second grader. This is also my first DPAC meeting.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lambert. I have a sixth grader at Woodley Hills Elementary.
Hi, I'm Shannon Springfield. I'm the art teacher at Bryn Mawr Park Elementary, and I have a second grader that attends Bryn Mawr Park and a fourth grader that attends Canterbury Woods.
Hi, I'm Trish Ramirez. I'm the parent liaison at Home Middle School. I have an 11th, 10th, and 9th grade sons at Woodson and a 7th grade daughter at Frost.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Merly Cordero.
Tengo dos niños, uno en cuarto grado y uno en tercer grado en la escuela Providence Elementary School.
Good evening, my name is Marilyn Cordero and I have two children, one in third and another in fourth grade at Providence Elementary School.
I think we have Yancy and Moses.
Hi, my name is Yancy Ramos. I am mother of the students of the Lynbrook Elementary School. Thank you.
My name is Moses. I have a fourth grader at Bryn Mawr Park Elementary School.
All right, I think that's it. We have a great group tonight, and folks are speaking, and I have to remind myself I will take a break, give time for Beatrice to interpret for our Spanish-speaking members of the group tonight. And Beatrice, if I go too far, just yell out my name and I'll stop talking.
I will. Thank you, Mike.
So what we're going to talk about tonight, and I will do my best to get us time back. We have a lot of new members, so I want to clarify, identify, explain what the role is of the TPAC in the county and in our respective schools, review some of our past work and upcoming work, and then we're going to have a discussion about the advanced academic program. You can go for it, Yvonne. So this committee operate under the Title I Act, which is the ESSA. Yvonne could put backwards in her sleep, but I will give the high points. It really is for family engagement. That's what it's driven towards. It's about the outreach. It's about involvement that parents have in the planning and programming Title I schools, and meaningful consultation. which is more than just a survey, or if you have something to say, it's really seeking input, feedback, and figuring out ways that it can be incorporated. It's not just a one-way flow of information or one-way decision making. It has to be more collaborative. On this committee, you're representing your school, but you're also hopefully building a relationship with your principal and also helping them in being effective in delivering what needs to be provided to students and families in Title I schools. You will have the opportunity to develop your own leadership and advocacy skills. Each of you will be able to do that in your individual school, and there may be opportunities throughout the year when you can do it either at school board level communications or working with other committees. We've been talking about some of that. I may go into more detail on that later, maybe our next meeting. But one of the points that was made in the presentation last week was the importance that citizen advisory committees collaborate with one another, because we often intersect on many issues, and at the very least, we can inform each other's work. So I really asked if the school board could help facilitate venues for us to talk more, see what we're working on, and see where we can partner and collaborate. And having such a large group of this committee, I think we're the biggest committee, it allows us to be more agile, and we can get down at greater depth on some issues than we may be able to in our general meetings. So going briefly over the recommendations to the school board, we had the family engagement survey was done for the first time in years are all melding together. I believe it was 2018 was when it was issued, and 2019 we talked about the results as they came in and wanted to use it as a tool to not only increase participation in the survey but increase positive feedback in the areas. I think the largest area which this committee is well suited to serve is parent understanding of how to support their student success in the classroom. Second recommendation was about greater access to advanced learning. Advanced academic program, we know it as a program, but advanced academics, advanced learning is really a philosophy, and we need to treat it as such. Therefore, we need to have earlier, more comprehensive information to parents about anything regarding the program, and that's why we actually have Kirsten Maloney from the AAP office tonight speaking to us, because we normally have that meeting in December, but because of some timelines that are moved up, it's imperative that we get this information out as soon as possible. Also, what was stressed last week was the need and the importance of having an asset-based mindset, having trained teachers, classroom teachers, because they are the first point of contact with students, having them operate in an asset-based mentality. The word can't needs to be abolished from their thinking, from their speaking, even if they don't say it. If they think it, it shows in how they educate and treat their students. And last, we increased the trauma sensitivity. We had a two-part series on trauma. It was a screening of the film Resilience, and then there was a parent-led presentation on how each of us could advocate for greater trauma sensitivity within our individual schools. And so from that, it needs to be everywhere, but within our Title I community, we want to provide opportunities, information with school leaders so that schools become trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive, and realize that many of what are now called disciplinary problems, behavioral issues, are often responses or triggers from trauma. It changes the entire engagement that takes place in a classroom when folks are operating on that level. Teachers, do I need to stop yet? I'm going for a while.
You're doing great.
Okay, thank you. Our charge for the upcoming year, specifically through an equity and anti-racist lens, increasing parent capacity and comprehension of Title I services and opportunities, including providing information materials in various languages. And I'm proud to say for the first time, we have an interpreter on hand and we have Spanish-speaking parents. It's not the only language we want to cover, but we are making progress. I'm glad we're having that. We also want to explore the impact of behavior, health, and well-being on student success. And that really is, the whole child, everything that's taking place in and out of the. And what goes together with that is the curriculum, how students connect to the information, how they feel about it, how it makes them feel, inspires them, sparks their creativity, and staffing to ensure that anti-racism becomes embedded in the curriculum, in the training, and the professional development of staff. That 2 and 3 kind of flow together very well because how well 3 is done is going to impact how positive the outcomes are for number 2. So I will now turn the presentation over to Kirsten Maloney from the Advanced Academic Program Office.
Great, thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the chance to speak to your committee tonight. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Kirsten Maloney. I'm the coordinator of Advanced Academic Programs. I do have some links that, Yvonne, do you share the PowerPoint out later, or should I share a link so that they have all the links to the things that are embedded?
Kirsten, I will, following tonight's meeting, once the recording comes into my inbox, I will be emailing out the recording and the PowerPoint in PDF format. But if you think they should have the regular PowerPoint to access the links, I can do that as well.
No, that's okay, Yvonne, that's great. I just wanted to make sure, because there's a bunch of links embedded in here, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't have to be pasting them into the chat, and that they will get them after the meeting. So thank you so much for that.
Yes.
So I have 3 kind of big chunks of our meeting tonight, and then questions at the end. The first is just to give you an overview of advanced academic programs. I know everybody is at elementary level, but it's important to kind of understand the whole K-12 continuum. So we'll talk about both of those as an overview and give some ideas about what types of communications are happening at your local schools and some things that you can check in about at your local schools just to make sure just connections between what we're talking about here and what's going on. And then second, we'll give some updates, as Mike alluded to. Because of the pandemic, there are a couple of updates to our screening process for our full-time program, the Level 4 program that happens in grades 3 through 8. So I'll give you a little bit of information about that, as well as an overview of what our entire process is like, because a lot of people don't realize how intensive and thorough that process is. So we'll give an overview of that and some of the training that the folks who participate in those screenings get. And then lastly, I'll provide some additional notes and resources in terms of some committee work from the advisory committee, the Advanced Academic Programs Advisory Committee, which just actually presented last week right after your committee to the school board. So I'll share with you a little bit about what our report was last year and link to an external review that we happened to go through last school year. All right, so to start with an overview, oops. Yvonne, we're both, I think, looking at, or somebody's looking at the same time. I'm gonna take my hands off the wheel. All right, so I'd like to start off with this because there are a lot of people with a lot of different thoughts about gifted education, including the people who work in the field. And so what I like to do is frame our approach that we take with it in Fairfax so that you know which parts of gifted education guide our work and which parts don't. So there are three big paradigms, three big fields of work within the field of gifted education. And you'll notice that there are two things called out on this slide. So the one that's not on this slide that doesn't really guide our work in Fairfax is called the gifted child paradigm. And that paradigm will go along with things that are really heavily looking at test scores or things, people who might have perspectives about giftedness as something that you're born with. But there's been a lot of research since a long time ago. That's kind of an older paradigm. There's been a lot of research since then that talks about, that rebalances what we know about the role of nurturing. That would be a purely nature type of outlook on something. You've probably heard of the nature-nurture debate and how people become, successful in who they are, and which is the most important. And we know that both are important. And so the paradigms that we follow within Fairfax recognize that talent can be nurtured. So we don't really, when you hear people talking about the top % or a child who's just born with it, so that's them, certainly students are born with certain affinities, but that's not the paradigm that guides most of our work. We're guided by these other two paradigms. One is talent development, and the other one is differentiation to meet the needs of advanced learners. And so when you talk to people, sometimes they might only know about one of these things. And so everything that they're talking about is from that frame of reference. But we actually are trying to do two big things because both of these are really important for students. Talent development is really important for all students, and it helps us to, it guides our work in identification. And differentiation is something that our students need, and we also have state regulations that require us to both identify and serve advanced learners. So a little bit more about each one. This is the talent development, how you might see our talent development work show up in Fairfax. In the top left here, you will see a piece of the Fairfax County Strategic Plan. And it's a little hard to read, but when you get the slides, hopefully you'll be able to see that more closely. But it talks about access to advanced academic curriculum, and it's part of closing opportunity gaps. The way that we measure that in Fairfax is we redefined what our level 1 services are. And level 1 services are what every student gets starting in kindergarten. For a long time, those were a set of 9 critical and creative thinking strategies. And those are detailed on our website. There's videos about them. I'm going to show you a little bit later on some articles that my predecessor wrote about how you could use those at home with your students. And those are still very important. But we've expanded it now to also include curriculum, because curriculum is deeper dive. It's a little bit more involved, and it's a whole experience that students get. Instead of just a strategy that you could do, we often say the strategies are so easy, you can do them in a morning meeting in a classroom, or you can do them while you're sitting at the dinner table, or while you're riding in the car. So they're just ways of prompting thinking, whereas a curriculum is a bigger experience for students. So the way that we measure this goal in the strategic plan is that every classroom teacher, kindergarten through 6th grade, needs to provide the opportunity for students in their class, all students in their class, not just a small group, to experience some part of the advanced academic program's curriculum. Now, I can tell you, we have so much curriculum for each grade level, starting in kindergarten, that it takes up probably in a list form about 2 to 3 pages. And that because we have it for each of the 4 subject areas, for math, reading, social studies, and science. So at different points throughout the year, the teachers will say, hey, we're all going to try to use a Project Clarion unit, which is a project-based learning type of unit, starts in kindergarten, goes up through 3rd grade, and that has them go through a wheel of inquiry and make up experiments that they then test out. They take on the role of a scientist and learn what types of vocabulary to use. So they're not just learning facts about science, but they're taking on the role of that discipline and becoming scientists and having the behaviors of scientists. So that's just one example of many things that teachers have to choose from. And last year was the first year with this goal. I can tell you that before we started with this goal and we did a baseline assessment of where everybody was, the 27% of classroom teachers could say, I already do this. I already at least once a quarter offer this curriculum to all the students in my class. So there were many schools that were already doing this work. And what we really needed was there to be more equity across the district, that this would be for every classroom, that this would be happening. So my team last year and I visited many collaborative learning teams. That's when the teachers plan with their grade level. And we saw a lot of really exciting things going on in those teams about teachers getting the curriculum out, going through a lesson, experiencing it like a student basically, and trying to anticipate where the students might need some scaffolding if that came up. And then they would later on, then they would go teach it, and the advanced academic resource teacher may or may not be in there helping them depending on what the teacher said they needed. And then they would come back and they would reflect on that experience. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, it's important because the approaches that have historically been part of the pedagogy or the teaching style of advanced academic or gifted education are quite different. They're not as much direct instruction. They do let students discover a lot more, and it's very student-centered and inquiry-based. So the students are asking a lot of questions. They're guiding a lot of what's going on, and a lot of higher level thinking goes on all throughout. So that shift, some teachers may or may not have been trained that way when they were in college. Some may or may not have been taught that way when they were students. And so we're helping teachers to build their teaching toolkit, if you will, for how to teach with these approaches. What I heard when I went out to collaborative learning teams and listened to the teachers was they were nervous before they started using it, but they dove in, and they were very happy about how they saw students responding to it. You could sense for some it was uncomfortable because you can't script out an inquiry-based lesson the way that you can some other lessons. So for a teacher, if I'm used to everything kind of happening exactly the way I predict it, it feels a little out of control at first, but they were trying it and they were getting used to it. So what was great was to hear the teachers talking about, it was hard for me. I had to give up something that was very comfortable for me, but this is what I noticed about the students, and this is why I think it's important. So some of the things that they were noticing was that the student engagement went up, and they were hearing students be really excited about some of the things that they were learning. He also said, I heard a kindergarten teacher say, I got like 3 emails from the parents in my class about this math unit I just taught, and I've never gotten any emails about when I teach measurement in my past years, but because they did it through the Mentoring Young Mathematicians unit, which is all about frogonauts going out into space and building a space station and using measurement to do it, the kids came home and they were talking about these frogonauts and being out in space and the math that they were using to be able to do this. So they were hearing parents, or this is going on even after the kids leave my math lesson. They're still talking about this. And they were talking about things like every time we pass the work in the hallway, they're pointing to the work in the hallway and they're talking about it still. So again, an extension of that excitement. And then the last thing, which I really love a lot too, was they said, in the past when I've taught this, I've had to reteach it later on in the year. The kids kind of forgot about it. And what I'm noticing, and it's not perfect, it's not, you know, in every single case, but they said the stickiness of this learning, it's sticking with the kids more, like they're remembering it. So all of these things, I think, as teachers experience this curriculum, which they used to think, oh, well, that's just for some kids, and they're trying out more and more of it, they're realizing the benefits for all students. So I was really excited about everything that I was seeing when I went out and I visited schools last year, and the way that the advanced academic resource teacher and the other specialists in the school were supporting the teachers in learning this. And so that is something that we need to be continuing and building on and doing more and more of. Unfortunately, because of the closure, we didn't get to measure it at the end of the year. I can say I took a mid-year snapshot and things were going up, and we have lots of anecdotal evidence that when we were visiting teams, this was happening. But at the end of the year, with everything that was going on, we didn't get to measure. So I don't know exactly a number that it went from 27% to something. I know it went up. I just don't know the exact number. So other things that are here on this slide to show you what I mean by talent development. On the bottom left is a picture of some kindergartners working with a reading comprehension program called Jacob's Ladder, which is one of the most popular things amongst our teachers. And the way that works is it takes students from more foundational reading comprehension up to the higher level skills. So as they climb the ladder, what they use at the bottom is going to help them with the middle. And what they do in the middle is going to help them with the top. And that top is the higher level thinking. So that's a way of scaffolding for higher level thinking. And so you can see the kids are there and working through some things with a story that they had read. We built a lot of resources to support teachers in doing this. As I mentioned, we have a lot of curriculum and it can be overwhelming for teachers. So we came up with guides for all of the teachers so they could see what options for entry points they might have for each course, so that they could easily pick and know what they were picking aligned with things they were going to be studying anyway. And then also you'll notice there the compass at the top about finding your passion. I feel really strongly about every student as they go through their K through 12 career really honing in on what it is that gets them really excited about learning. And just like you all probably feel as adults, there are certain passions that you really latch onto, and it's different for everybody. And what I want kids to realize is everybody's pathway doesn't have to be the same exact pathway. But when you find your passion and you put your heart into it, that's going to drive you way more than a lot of other things that people think are the markers of success. And then the last piece that's there is our Young Scholars model, which is what Fairfax has had for a while to help us try to close gaps in representation. So this is seeking out students from historically underrepresented populations who, if we don't intervene and do some more things in terms of advocacy or providing access, and help them to really build that voice inside themselves that's going to help them persist when things get challenging, or somebody somewhere along the line tells them that they can't. I mean, because unfortunately that may happen. How will they just push past that and make sure that they know that they can? And how do we make sure that we have high expectations for them and we build within them high expectations for themselves? So that is something that came out in our external review as something that we need to get stronger at. We've had the model for a while, but when we have schools assess, where are you in implementing this model? Some schools are really highly functioning. They've got it down. They're doing it with strong doses of intervention. And some other schools are going to be setting goals and getting better at those doses of intervention. So all of this is the work of our office when we're talking about talent development. And this is a huge part of our work. And then the second piece is our differentiation to meet the needs of advanced learners. And that's because we know that not every student is exactly the same. Their interests are going to be different. Their pace that they need is going to be different. And all of these things are going to play into whether or not access at the tier 1 level, as we get teachers using more and more of that, is going to meet their needs. So as we do more and more of that at Tier 1, there may be fewer students who feel that, who would need level 2, 3, and 4 as we get stronger with Tier 1. But there's still going to be some students who, because of certain passion areas or strengths that they have, are going to need more. And this is similar to a model that they use in special education, which is called response to intervention. In special education, you use what are the interventions that we give to everybody. And in the advanced academic case, we use the 9 critical and creative thinking strategies and the access to the curriculum for everyone. For the students whose need that doesn't meet, then they might need level 2 services. And if level 2 services, which is differentiation in a single subject area, so for example, advanced math might be a level 2 service, or advanced science if it's something where they need more than just once a quarter access to the units that we have for science. Then we would go to level 3 services, which is a part-time service in multiple subject areas, and direct services about once a week at least with the advanced academic resource teacher. And then if that's still not enough, knowing, again, we're still providing Tier 1, so there should be access all along all of these levels. Full-time level 4 is also where a lot of people, when they think of AAP, that's what they think of. And so one of the things I want to convey to you tonight is that's one section of this bigger picture of talent development and differentiation. That's just one little section. That's the one that gets a lot of notice. But we're doing work in all these areas all the time. So one of the things Mike asked me to speak about tonight was just what can you all do in terms of advocacy when you're talking to your principals and thinking about some of the things that are going on. The 1 time a quarter use of the curriculum, that's a starting point. And our vision is really that as teachers learn some of the curriculum, they'll keep using that, and then each year they'll take on learning some more so that they're building and building and building. So one of the things that you could just ask about is, where is our school? Are we just in the getting started place with that? Or are we getting more experience and it's happening more often? Another thing that you could inquire about is, in what content areas is it happening? And what we found from our mid-year data collection last year is that math and language arts are the places where the teachers are diving into the curriculum. So the Mentoring Young Mathematicians unit, like the Frogonauts that I talked about, that was, those M² units were being used a lot. And the Jacob's Ladder was being used a lot. We have units in other areas, like Clarion Science and document-based questions and social studies, and some William and Mary units for language arts that start as young as kindergarten. And they are, I know why teachers aren't using them as much. They are more to learn how to use. But one of the things that the research does tell us is that when we want to engage learners, engaging them in the content areas, or in the 2 content areas of science and social studies, is where some kids really get sparked and jazzed about things. So when we talk about finding your passion, for some kids it might be in the language arts, and for some kids it might be in math. If we don't bring in the social studies and science, we're going to miss some kids' strength areas and the areas that they get really excited about. Another question that you could ask is, some of these things can be done as a single lesson within the curriculum unit. And when I say lesson, a lesson out of an M² unit, if you did the whole unit, it probably would take 3 weeks. If you do one lesson, it's probably going to take 3 days. So a single lesson doesn't mean that you're not getting, something substantial, but it's not the same as a whole unit. Some people, I will say that the units branch beyond exact grade level things. So for some people that feels uncomfortable. They think, I've got a lot to teach. I don't have time to do that because it's not in this exact grade level. So that's where some people might feel like we just don't have time to do that. It is interdisciplinary, so you're teaching a lot of things that will really help students in a lot of different ways. Next, I would say, what kind of support are teachers getting? Because I'm talking about all this, and it's not easy. I mean, we offer professional development, but even when teachers come to that, they still feel like this is really different. I'd like some support. So our view, we were really lucky that Title I schools last year got a 1.0 AART in every Title I school. And the reason the school board funded that was that they knew that that AART was really important for our equity goals when it came to strong implementation of the Young Scholars model and supporting teachers for these access to rigor goals. So the ways that we do that, you know, if you get a full-time resource teacher and they end up being in a STEAM lab or covering teachers while the teachers are planning, then it misses a piece of the intent there, because we really want advanced academic resource teacher to be there when the teachers are planning so that they can help. They don't have to be in every meeting when they're planning, but they need to be in a certain frequency of meetings when they're planning so that these things can be embedded within. And then also, are they available to go in and co-teach with a teacher who would like that? So sometimes the way that looks is the advanced academic resource teacher might model it, and then the next time they might teach it together, and then the next time maybe the classroom teacher teaches it, and the advanced academic resource teacher is taking anecdotal notes on what she notices about the students and how they're reacting. So there's a lot of different ways this can happen. How do we maximize that AART? We fought really hard to get those positions, so making sure that they're being used to really work on those equity goals and build the teacher's ability to do this all the time instead of just when the advanced academic resource teacher is there is really important. So those would be some things that I would say when you're having conversations that you could ask about and see where your school is. So I talked a lot, and before I move on to the next section, which is to look at K through 12, I just wanted to pause and ask if anybody had any questions about that so far. Lily?
Good evening. Thanks for taking the time to explain everything. I'm actually a little bit curious about how the AAP program right now, especially in the level 2, because my child is on the level 2 program, how that's affecting with this distance learning and the virtual learning. And are the teachers able to recognize these children that are advancing when they're so limited to being able to see their reactions or even, you know, assess them realistically?
Thanks, Lily. You know, I would say this is an issue not just with advanced academics. This is just a challenge of distance learning overall right now, and we meet about once a month with the advanced academic resource teachers. We've heard some really great success stories, and we've heard about some schools where they are feeling a little bit in the dark because of, you know, whether or not students are on the camera or in the ways that they can see the participation. So I think it's very mixed right now in terms of all that. Level 2 services is that's still at that point still with the classroom teacher, and as much as possible we're encouraging the advanced academic resource teacher to push into those virtual classrooms and teach with the teacher, so that because I think the teacher has certain things that they can pay attention to while that AART might be teaching. But I mean, it is not an easy situation, and that's not unique just to advanced academics right now. I think that's a struggle just in general. But everybody is, I mean, I don't know how they could work any harder at it. They're trying really hard and learning along the way. Sarah?
I have to say, we have a fabulous AART at Herndon Elementary. She's really phenomenal, and I cannot believe that we only get one. You know, when I look at this and I think about the population at our Title I schools, how, you know, like, how can we advocate to get more for these schools? You know, just running Young Scholars is a job in itself. And then trying to help train these teachers so that we do have this level 1, because, you know, I will say in our area, there's a flight. A lot of our talent leaves at 3rd grade or is trying to leave. And, you know, so is there anything else we can do, you know, not necessarily to advocate to our principal, to advocate to the school board to get more help with this?
Great question. You're singing to the choir right now with that. So what I would say, number one, you have Miss Omesh on here right now. She's an advocate for you. the other thing that a couple of the Title I schools do, and it's also different because some schools are smaller than others and some are really big, but we do have 3 Title I schools right now that pay to have more than one AART. So they get money from Title I, and they can use that towards professional development. And I think having an AART is a form of professional development. It's job-embedded professional development. So that is an option for schools. So principals have some money that they can trade, but what we find is, 3 of our schools, we have one Title I school that actually uses their Title I money, at least some of their Title I money and some of their trade money, so that they have 3 AARTs. Now they are very big. And then 2 other schools that pay to have a second ART. But Ms. Omesh, please chime in.
Yeah, no, thanks. You're doing a great job. So there's not much I have to add. I did want to just say that the school board actually is looking at AAP in general right now. And just today, we passed 2 forum topics to look at, one of which I co-sponsored, which I was really happy to do. But elementary and middle school AAP programs in general, and thinking about just rethinking how we do it. It's a result of the last board had commissioned a consultant group to kind of re-examine the entire thing, provide us with recommendations, and they're supposed to be coming back later in the year to present again based on our questions and feedback for them this first time around. But I mean, maybe we can reimagine the whole thing to expand AAP to every school, and that way, the AARTs become a necessity and they become a budget item. So everything requires resources, and it takes 12 people to agree to do any of these things, which is not always easy. But I definitely take your point to heart. And actually, the consultants had offered it as feedback. Like the AARTs seem to be a really good tool to ensure that there's more equity and we get certain kids through that pipeline, right? So definitely, along the same lines of what you're advocating for, and would look forward to your advocacy and everyone else's advocacy when these things are up for a vote in front of the board, because there are definitely varied opinions on this.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And I'm going to mention it later, and there'll be a slide about it, but just it seems pertinent here. There is a school board work session next Tuesday at 11 o'clock where staff is going to respond to the recommendations from the review. And some of the things do cost money. So these are hard decisions to be making, but it's been at least 5 advanced academic programs advisory committee reports are the advisory committee for that we have. School board members each have a representative, and then there's many associations that also send a representative. And every charge that we've had, which every single one has had equity at the center. We've had, how do we strengthen young scholars? How do we strengthen school-based services? How do we strengthen parent outreach and engagement? In every single one of them, the first recommendation has been, it's going to be really hard to do any of the recommendations that come next if you don't have an advanced academic resource teacher, because you need this person to be leading. And thank you for pointing out that even if we got that person, it's still a huge job. And that's why some of our principals have recognized that they need more than one. So thank you for that. All right. So I just like to make sure, even though all of you are, it sounded like most of you are elementary parents, this is our continuum of services. So everything that I was talking about, talent development spans the whole continuum here. Young Scholars is a K through 12 model. I will say for a long time that had an elementary focus, but we've been doing for probably the past 3 years a lot more focus on making sure young scholars are supported into middle school and high school, to make sure that all the work that goes into that continues on, and those students are continue to be supported, especially as their brains change in adolescence and they get into middle and high school. So everything I talked about before in terms of the levels of service, that's over in the elementary end, and then you can see the full-time program does branch up to 8th grade. Also, once you hit 7th grade, honors courses are open enrollment, so any student can sign up for any areas, and we encourage, I mean, I wish we had a goal that said every student enrolls in at least one honors class. Some schools are doing things where they'll have honors for everybody, and that's great, and there have been a lot of successes there. But back to my point about talent development, I really think it would be powerful too to have kids pick in which area they really want to make sure they're taking honors classes. And then, of course, once you get to high school, you still have honors classes, and those are open enrollment. Students can take advanced placement or international baccalaureate classes. Those usually open up around, most of them are in 11th and 12th grade. There are some that students might take in earlier grades. There's also really cool stuff with dual enrollment where students can take college level classes, get the college credit, and also meet their graduation requirements. And then I'm sure most of you have heard about Thomas Jefferson, which is also under lots of conversations with the school board right now too. That does not fall under our office. They have a whole other admissions office and outreach program, but it's another opportunity that our students have in Fairfax.
Christina, real quick, just wanted to ask, how can, well, what it said and what?
Hey, Mike, you're breaking up. We're missing what you're saying.
All right, is this better?
So far.
Hello? No good, or is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So what information is being provided to counselors, teachers, administrators at schools? Because while it's open enrollment, it's kind of like a secret method. You have to ask, you have to advocate, you have to go through some steps if or if any other standardized tests on a certain thing. So I think parents are not encouraged to push them beyond, especially if
Yeah, Mike, you were breaking up a little bit, but I think I get the gist of your question, so I'll try to answer it and let me know if I get it or not. So I think your question was about what work do we do with the school counselors about academic advising to make sure open enrollment really means open enrollment and that we're encouraging students to
and
take
teachers,
honors.
because sorry if you can't. I'm having bad. I have that low red bar, so I might be really bad.
Yeah. So what I'll say is, and hopefully this is it, and if not, then I can answer by email. You can share it with people later. But I think that so just so you know, along with the focus that we've had about young scholars for the past 3 years to make sure that what we begin in elementary school, that whole philosophy and mindset continues throughout secondary school, has been a strong focus in our schools. There is still growth to be done, and I think that when we do our school board work session next week, another one of the things that we will probably be asking for is somebody to help us oversee young scholars as a K through 12. Right now, our whole team shares all of that, and we're a small but mighty team. But we're trying to do curriculum for 4 different subjects and 4 different grade levels, and young scholars, and a really huge screening process, and overseeing all the advanced academic resource teachers. And so we've asked for it, and I think MSAOC has also asked for it, that we really would like a specialist to help us look at that and make sure it's K through 12. Right now we're sharing that as our team, and we partner a lot with the school counseling office. So last year, our office and school counseling and our Closing the Achievement Gap program manager all joined together and held a big meeting for all middle school and high school administrators and directors of student services, and who oversee all the counselors, and the IB and AP program coordinators. And they all came to a big meeting where we were highlighting a panel of about 6 schools that have been implementing really strong young scholars and open enrollment programs, so that their stories and their philosophy was being heard. And then we had team time to looking at school data and reflecting on how schools were going to move forward to what types of things are those schools using that would make sense in our school, what does our data look like, and how do we get it better. So we did have a whole day. It was last November, and we are going to continue. I think it's even in the next 2 weeks where those groups are going to be meeting again, and we're going to hook back to that message because academic advising starts in January. So we want to make sure before we get to January that we're talking to schools about how do you make sure you're encouraging students to sign up for honors classes. How do you make sure if a child has been identified for young scholars that they should be in a minimum of an honors class, probably more than that, and making sure that not only do they get in, but are we looking at their grades once they get in and making sure that they are getting the support they need to be successful in the classes. And so some schools are doing things like cohorting during the intervention time that the secondary schools will have. They'll group the young scholars together and with a teacher who knows about what Young Scholars is all about, and that person will support them not just with keeping up with their classes, but also talking about goal setting and study habits and a lot of the things. If you're familiar with AVID, it would be similar to things like AVID, except it's not something that we pay for and have an exact curriculum on, but it is something that it's analogous to it, I would say. So I hope that answers, the ways that we're working on it, Mike, but I certainly acknowledge teachers more so than counselors. A great counselor who told us was available in the teachers administrators. Okay, so yeah, I think that is, as a parent myself, when I encounter certain things like this, I loop back to the counselor and I just share, hey, I know this isn't the message you're sending, but this is the message I'm hearing. And sometimes that just means, at the school they need to have some deeper conversations about that. And if that's something that you're not hearing an aligned message with, that's when I usually talk to the school counselor about it, and they can talk too. So it's, we are so big in getting the message out there about what honors should be. So I'll just tell you, it sounds like we're asking for all kinds of money, and actually we are, but I'm advocating for at least a 0.5 AART at the middle school level. And that's because right now we don't have any AART at the middle school level. So when we talk about what honors classes should be, for some people, they're still operating on this really old, I don't even know where it came from because it doesn't make any sense to learning approach, which is it just means we give more. And that's not what honors is about. And so some teachers might have a really old mindset of, well, you signed up for honors and you should just be able to keep up with this more. And that's not what it's about anyway, but that's all a professional development issue. That's an issue of we need somebody there leading, well, what should it look like? What does depth and complexity look like? How do I support young scholars as a special population? So that's another thing that we'll probably be asking for when we show how we would like to respond to the recommendations next week. All right, I'm looking at the time and feeling a little bit worried about getting through. So I will just kind of go through the rest and hopefully not talk too fast, and then questions at the end. I don't have to get off right at 8:30, but I know some of you may. So I don't want to take up too any beyond that. So here's another place that I just want to make sure everybody knows what we have as required and what's optional in terms of parent outreach. The things that every local school does as just a routine thing is each year there are newsletter articles that go out about what services are available and what referrals, when the referral window is. It's always going to be from the first day of the school year until sometime when it ends. And that's one of the things I'll talk about in a minute, is that this year it's about a month earlier than it normally is. And there's a number of reasons for that. Those articles are all translated. Also, each local school offers 2 parent information meetings. One is on the continuum of services, and one is on the identification process. And last year, we put both of those presentations in narrated form in both English and Spanish on our public website. So if you go to our public website, you'll see a little bar that says Parent Presentations. If you click on that, you can pick which presentations you want to watch, and we have them in both languages. And so a lot of resource teachers this year, what they said was, because nobody wants to hang out online for hours and hours, watch this whenever you want, and then I'll be there for a Q&A, and we'll use our time online as a Q&A. So they were doing a bit of a flipped classroom there. And they said that I heard from a lot of schools, they had more parents show up to their parent information meetings virtually than they've ever had for when they were having them at the school. So that's something a lot of them said they're going to hang on to. Now that everybody's really comfortable getting online, they plan to always continue having the virtual option, since that seemed to work for so many people. And then also later in the year, there'll be a newsletter about school-based screening. School-based screening can happen at any time in the year, but it happens as a large clump in the spring. So that happens usually in April, May, June. And what happens there is the teams are identifying services for the next school year for school-based services. So that's for levels 2 and 3. Many schools will hold parent coffees. A lot of schools are starting to use text translation message programs, and we've heard a lot of success stories about that. And then what I would say, just in terms of when you check in with your local school, just find out, what's the participation been like for our parent meetings? How can I help get the word out so that we have more parents come to them if there's not a strong turnout right now? And then we always need ideas. So if you have ideas for what we should be doing to help families get the messages and know about available opportunities, please always share them with your local school and share them with us at central office, because we want this message out. And we're trying, we keep trying lots of different ways. So thank you for any ideas that you have for that. Middle schools do not have, they will do curriculum nights, and they'll talk about honors classes, and they'll talk about the advising process, but I don't think that they have the same nights. And maybe if there was an advanced academic resource teacher to lead that, that might be something, that there could be more going on with that. All right, so the screening updates that I want to make sure I share tonight is that this year, due to the pandemic, we have had to get really creative and work really fast across departments, and there's a degree of stress, I'm not going to lie, with all the advanced academic resource teachers, because even in a year where we're in school and I'm a full-time resource teacher and I'm there all the time, this is an intense process. Putting together, we don't screen kids with like a test score and a report card. We screen with a whole portfolio. And getting that together and coordinating the teachers and everything to make that come together is no small feat for our advanced academic resource teachers. And now adding on a layer of how, do I know the students as well as I would like to know them with this online environment? And I need to make every piece of this file digital and get it uploaded. It's a lot of work. So we have been working with information technology on a system so that we'll be able to do screening fully remotely. I feel so lucky that we got through central selection process the first week of March. That's normally when we do central selection. And this is for full-time services, the level 4 program that I'm talking about right now, because school-based services, level 2 and 3, that's screened at the local school. Central office is not involved in that. Level 4 comes to central office, and we gather about 100 people a day for 5 days, and they sit at tables of 6, and they screen files in silence all day long. It's a lot. And so we got through that, and then COVID hit and we closed school. So thankfully we were through that. We had our testing done. We got the central selection done. We were in a good place. We just had to figure out how to communicate the results to everybody and collect appeals. But friends of mine, other coordinators in other systems, hadn't even done their testing yet, which is a state requirement. We have to have a nationally normed ability test to be able to screen, and the state wasn't waiving it. So they're still, they didn't have screening last year, and they still haven't had it this year, and they're kind of on pause with their screening. So Fairfax is actually in a really good place, and we're working it out. And it's still a challenge, but we're not in as bad of a place as some of my friends in other school systems. One of the things that we decided was that the Naglieri nonverbal ability test is a one-day test, It was given in first grade, so most of our students already had it who are in second grade. The COGAT we normally would give in second grade, and it's a 3-day test. And number one, it's really, it's a logistical challenge to get kids to school safely to take a test. Even if we got back to in-person testing, we knew parents probably weren't going to be in love with the idea that my kid is finally back in school, and now you're giving them a test for 3 days. In addition to that, even in the best of years, getting the results back for the COGAT has been an extreme challenge to get them back in a timely way. We're so big, it would normally take us until that first week of January to get those test results back. And parents were always stressed out about, why don't we know what the pool is? Now, side note, the message in our office is, don't worry about the pool. The pool is about test scores, and we're not hyper-focusing on test scores. We have to do it by a Virginia regulation, but we view a file holistically. So if you think your child needs full-time services, if they are not being challenged right now, refer them. So we have always tried to say to people, if this is what you think you want, you can refer on the first day of school. Don't wait until the pool gets announced to decide whether you want to do a referral or not. And it is a paragraph that you have to write on a form, but honestly, many families who are in the pool still fill that out because it's an opportunity for you to share as a parent why you think those services are needed. Because we don't focus on test scores. So just because you're in the pool doesn't mean that it's going to be obvious why your child needs those services. So for all of these reasons, we decided that we weren't going to be able to give the COGAT this year. We only have to give one nationally normed ability test, and we already have the NNET for the majority of our second graders and older students. And if we don't, we are offering a way in December for students to come in and receive that. So if there's a student who falls in that category where we don't have a test score for them, then the local school will be reaching out, the school testing coordinator will reach out, let you know we don't have it. If you want to be screened for level 4, you're going to need it. And this is when we would like to have you come to school and do it. So transportation will be provided. It'll be safe and socially distanced. The testing office has been working with us on a whole protocol. And so that is what we are going to be able to offer this year. We are not able to do any retests this year. And so it is just going to be whatever there is from the NNET, and everybody is in that same situation, but that, due to the pandemic, is what we are going to be able to do this year. So our referral window now, instead of being from the first day of school until probably the first week of January, it's going to be until December 1st. And there's multiple reasons for that. Number one, we're no longer waiting for the COGAT score. So we're actually going to announce the pool first week of November. So you'll know, parents of second graders will know if their student is in the screening pool in the second week of November. Normally, we wouldn't be telling people that until the 1st of January. Or maybe it's right around winter break. It's always like a nail biter whether we're going to get those things back from the vendor in time, and people get really stressed out. The principals on the line probably know what I'm talking about. But we have the NNET scores already. We're working out scenarios for the pool, and that will be announced soon. So if your student is not in that second grade pool and you want them screened, then you turn in the referral. You have a month to do it, which is longer than we would have had in other years when we don't announce the pool until January. The second reason is that normally we provide substitutes to the local schools, and they will have 1 or 2 days of screening where the teacher comes down to a committee room and sits with the advanced academic resource teacher and an administrator, and there might be 1 or 2 other people on the committee, and they work on the gifted behavior rating scale together in that room, and substitutes cover the classes. There's a floating substitute that covers all the classes. We can't use substitutes right now because of distance learning. So we have to give the AARTs some more weeks, giving them another month of Mondays or whatever days they can squeeze in to try to make sure they can still make these committee meetings happen. So that's another challenge for them. It's also a lot of logistics for them to gather work samples, to get them scanned, to make sure that they can get uploaded. We need to give them that space to do that. This is not going to be an easy lift for them this year, and they need that extra month. So that's a little bit about why we are changing those around. Okay. So hopefully that answered your questions about that. I will say that we tried to keep minimum changes this year and only do things that the pandemic requires. There are some more equity-related recommendations that will come up in next Tuesday's school board work session, and we'll have to decide about those. But I will say I think they're advantageous to equity, and hopefully nobody would be unhappy about those. But stay tuned. This is all we have planned. So just to give you a quick overview of the whole process, starting over on the left, what is best practice in the field, but not everybody does this in their gifted programs, is universal screening. And what that means is everybody gets a screener. There are some systems that operate on an old practice that you only get screened for advanced academics if you are referred by a teacher. Of course, that's when teacher bias can come into play, but teachers sometimes don't see things, or they might be looking at behaviors and judging things on behaviors and not realizing that sometimes the things that might be a gifted behavior they consider to be like you're not cooperating with my class, and those can be two of the same things, but they're only looking at it one way. So we weed that out because we have the first grade Naglieri nonverbal ability test that everybody gets. Under normal circumstances, we would give a second screener, which is the COGAT, and we actually give a third screener, which is that every student K through 6 gets the gifted behavior rating scale. Quick training point, because Mike told me this might be a question, is that all schools do training with the teachers about how to fill out the gifted behavior rating scale each year, and that is filled out as not as a single teacher. So we don't want there to be a single voice that is over influencing that. So what we found, and the external reviewers found this as well, is that the gifted behavior rating scale actually is one of our strongest tools to help us find students from underrepresented populations. Students in underrepresented populations often don't get really high test scores, but teachers can observe behaviors from them and write down anecdotals about their responses to opportunities, and that can be really compelling in a file. So, those are 3 examples of universal screeners that we have. Then, I'm 3 minutes over. Mike, do you need me to stop, or do you want me to just rush through a little bit?
Keep going. I bought us some time to 8:40 to 8:45. I don't know if you can hear a word I'm saying because my bar is low.
Good. I'll keep going. All right. So then we determine the pathways to central selection. One is that second grade pool that I was talking about, and we determine how we're going to determine that pool. That's an annual decision that we make in instructional services. So we haven't announced that yet. That will be announced in the first week of November. And then the second pathway is by referral. And state regulations are that a parent, a teacher, anyone who knows the student or the student themselves can refer themselves for advanced academic services, whether it's level 4 or for the other services. So there's 2 pathways. Next, the local school puts together a portfolio. And again, it's a portfolio, not just test scores. They put together work samples, test scores that can include ability or achievement if they're applicable, which is usually for students 4th grade and up once we start seeing SOL scores come in, progress reports, the gifted behavior rating scale with commentary, and on that they note if the student has strength areas, and then there are opportunities for parent input if parents choose to do that. There's a questionnaire, and it gives some ideas of gifted behaviors that parents can say, oh yeah, my child has this really unique sense of humor, and here's an example of it. And then it goes to central selection process. So central selection, if you watch the school board work session next week, I think there'll be a picture of it. It's a huge room of about 100 people, 6 people sitting at each table, and they sit and they read files for the whole day. And each file will be read by 6 people. And they read it on their own. They decide what their decision is on their own, and then it takes a consensus of 4 people for either an eligible or an ineligible decision. So there's a lot of different people who are reading the file. A training point about that is that we do training with a really strong equity focus for a half day to prepare anybody to serve on the committee. And then at the beginning of each day, we do about an hour introduction, again, reminding people about the ways that we screen, about our equity focus, and we invite diverse educator roles to participate in the committee. So we will have teachers, administrators, specialists, like ESOL special education teachers or advanced academic resource teachers, school psychologists. So we like to get a lot of different perspectives at each of the tables so that everybody brings their own lens to those files. And then if a student is found ineligible, we do have an appeals process. It is initiated by parents. They have to submit new information, and the new committee reviews both the original file as well as the new information that's submitted. The schools usually aren't involved in that because in this middle step where they put together the portfolio, there's a huge amount of work that goes into that. And we need our advanced academic resource teachers to get back to teaching and to get back to doing that tier 1 to access to rigor support. So at this point, the appeals process has been parent initiated, and it really is, there has to be really compelling evidence to change what the original decision was. And then just real quick, some additional notes and resources. Our charge for last year for APAC was around access for K through 2. The report was made right after Mike did the report for your committee on October 13th, and that is hyperlinked when you get the slides after this. Another quick note is that if you are interested in reading the external review that we went through, it's about 65 pages long, but there are sections, so you can zoom into whatever you're interested in. But that is hyperlinked. It's on board docs, and so it's hyperlinked in the PowerPoint. I've also hyperlinked the video because there was a work session, I think it was May 18th, where the external review folks presented their findings to the school board, and so that is also hyperlinked if you wanted to watch that meeting. And here in yellow, I've referenced it a couple of times. There is going to be a work session next Tuesday at 11 a.m. to provide a response to the recommendations and what we would like to do to address those. And then also, this is a hyperlinked page on our website. I mentioned earlier those 9 critical and creative thinking strategies and things that you can do at the dinner table or when you're driving the car. All of these little links here you can click on, and they are articles written for parents so that you can know about how to develop critical and creative thinking for your student at home. And these are also hyperlinked, but if you're really into representation gaps and excellence gaps information, these are 3 resources that I often refer people to. So if you want to really just a bite, a snack, or a meal, there's 3 options here for you. Just so you know, the 2 of the authors, Jonathan Plucker and Scott Peters, of the Excellence Gaps in Education book, they were 2 of the 4 reviewers for our external review last year, so they're experts in this. But there are some other shorter versions of that if you would like to read about those. And sorry that I went so over, but and so I don't know if we want to take questions or comments right now, because I know, Mike, you might need to say some other things. So maybe we can collect questions or something. Yvonne, let me know what you think is best.
I will ask parents to put their questions in the chat box. And then what we can do is when I send out the meeting minutes and the recording, Kirsten, I get you to respond to those questions. Mike, does that work with you?
That sounds fine. If nobody else has anything, I just got kicked out and back in, so anything was typed, I missed it, but I think we're okay. Nobody raised their hand or anything, so.
I did not know I needed to raise my hand. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, quick question at Bailey's lower. Students who are not invited to receive level 4 services are automatically screened for level 3. Is that something that's consistent across all of the Title I schools in Fairfax County?
Yes, that is what we tell the advanced academic resource teachers to automatically do, is to say, if a parent has expressed interest in level 4, obviously they're interested in advanced academics, so just as a matter of course, you should be screening the student for level 3 too.
Thank you.
Sarah?
I just had a quick question. Back when you were talking about the tier 1 access to rigor, that form, is that something that all FCPS teachers have access to?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something
that's through our planning and pacing guides, and so it's all, yes, they all have access to it.
Okay, so one other question is just kind of who's responsible. Like, so we had a couple people say, yeah, my kid is designated level 2. I think sometimes as parents, we don't see all the stuff that's happening. So I'm curious, is it our AART who's responsible for like making sure that those level 2 services are provided by the classroom teacher, or is that a principal enforcement? Like, who's kind of doing the accountability for those?
So I would first check with the classroom teacher, because sometimes it might be happening, but it isn't. Maybe the resources. Yeah. It's because they're not going to put a big AAP on it, and so they might be doing it. So they might be able to just explain it. If they don't seem to be able to articulate that, then I would check with the advanced academic resource teacher, and she can make sure the teacher has the resources that she needs and can get the instructional support that she needs to.
Sure. Thank you.
Lily?
Yeah, so if I wanted to try to apply again for my child to do the advanced academic level 4 screening, how would I do that this year? How would I put together the portfolio like in the past? And how would the teacher do that with all the distance learning? I find this to be really tricky right now, really showcasing the child and the teacher knowing the child that they're dealing with. I feel like it's just so screened, so masked, there's no way to really see.
So there's a couple of things where, luckily we give the jibbers every single year, and the resource teachers, if they're not brand new to the school, we can't control if they're brand new or not, but if they've been at the school, they usually know the students to some extent. A lot of times when we're getting closer to putting together the files, the resource teacher will pull small groups so that they would be able to, when they get to the gifted behavior rating scale meeting, have some things in their mind that are pretty fresh about opportunities and how the students responded recently to that. That doesn't, it depends a lot, because if the classroom teacher is already doing a lot, the school may not need to do that. But if there's other things going on, that is sometimes a way that some schools ensure how are we making sure we're giving those opportunities and gathering those work samples. So people get creative about how they can gather those. So, I mentioned, students have a GIBBER score from last year. We always say to the advanced academic resource teacher, when you know who's being screened, if the teacher from last year is still in the school, touch base with them. Look at what their GIBBER score was last year and make sure that what this year's teacher is seeing, are they in alignment? And if they're not, let's sit down and have a conversation about that. So there are some checks and balances in place. And like I said, you're not wrong. It is going to be challenging, like everything that we're going through in education right now, but we're trying the very best that we can.
I'm sorry, Kirsten, what was the question?
The question was, how will teachers be able to get good work samples and really know the students when we're in this distance learning environment? I think, Nina, if I captured that.
I had a question that and it's a hard thing to say as a former teacher myself, but having the same AART teacher for 6 years, for 6 or 7 years, it might actually not be a good thing in some settings if the teacher is not effective or doesn't know how to work with this student population, especially in Title I schools. That might not, that might be like actually a bad thing for the students, for the school. So I hope there is consideration to teacher effectiveness in terms of the AART teacher. Otherwise, the kid is stuck with the same person from kindergarten to 6th grade. And that's just not fair or effective in some situations.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, we do have, we have standards for evaluation for the advanced academic resource teacher, and they are evaluated like other teachers at their local school. So, principals reach out to me when there are advanced academic resource teachers who may need support. And sometimes the role may or may not fit people, and we have those conversations. But we try our best to get a good match. All right, well, thank you all. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I like to speak to parents about this process and make sure we're myth busting the things that you might hear out there and make sure we have the right message. But our message is definitely about access and lots of opportunity and talent development and making sure students' needs for differentiation are met. So I appreciate you listening tonight and looking forward to partnering with you if there's any way I can help.
Thank you, Kirsten. Really appreciate it. And let us know if there's ways. I mean, we're still we're discussing it. It hasn't been formulated, but let us know if there are ways that, the TPAC, since we do have a large group, that we can partner, work with, support, collaborate on some things. All right. So just going over the rest of the meeting schedule. We are virtual until further notice. And our next meeting will be December 1st. Then in January, let me go back real quick. Oh, there it is. And then in January, it'll be the 26th, February 23rd, April 20th, and May 11th. Again, subject to whatever's happening in terms of school occupancy. So the next meeting, we're going to talk about the revisions to the student rights and responsibilities, culturally responsive practices. So this is around discipline, behavior. It should be a good discussion. We were actually going to cover that back in March before everything shut down. So we have it back on. And in January, we're going to talk about anti-racist enhancements to social studies. That'll be a really exciting discussion. February 23rd will be the family engagement survey, coming up on 2 years. And if nothing else, this time period has really allowed for us to look at what works, what doesn't, what needs to improve. And social emotional learning will be the 20th, which has a lot of components in the previous meeting. So I think that our meetings leading up to that will help inform that. And then May 11th, we will be presenting the school board report and just talk about organizational planning going forward. I wanted to make sure that Kirsten had enough time, but I do want to hit very quickly on, you don't have to worry about slides, just want to distinguish, especially for those who are new, how the TPAC differs from any other organization, parent organization that you may know or be involved with. Unlike the PTA, which has its or PTO, which may have its own structure, its own reporting network, especially in the PTA, PTOs are a little more independent. But the difference between those organizations is that this is a citizen advisory committee appointed by the school board, and we have a seat at the table with the school board. We have a representative, as you heard, from the school board who listens into what we're doing, advocates for us, makes suggestions, connects us to resources, helps get things moving. And that's a distinct difference where there's some type of membership requirements for PTA, PTO. TPAC is anybody who is in a Title I school has access, has rights to what everybody should have. That's the major difference. And I think that we're able to represent the entire school community in a way that the other organizations may not be able to. It doesn't mean that we can speak for every single person's voice, but we have an opportunity to elevate certain voices and perspectives and help the principal in connecting to all those voices and perspectives. So other than that, we have a vacancy on the executive board. And for those who are interested, as the follow-up email that goes out in the next couple of days, it'll be my email address, which you can write to if you're interested. Essentially what we do, we meet beyond the general session schedule. We kind of coordinate, plan meetings, and get early work on the report. So if it's something that you are interested in, definitely reach out. The staff does such a great job. I just get to show up and talk, so it's pretty easy. But if there's any other questions before we sign out, I do want to respect everyone's time. Appreciate the great turnout we had this evening. I'm sorry we had a lot of excitement to start. So if there is nothing, I do want to thank Kirsten again, and thank you, Beatrice, and Yvonne, Leona, Kathleen, Courtney, Lisa, Whatever else, if I missed anybody, my apologies. I look forward to seeing you all on December 1st.
Ms. Omesh, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to folks, because Kirsten mentioned that the advanced academics work session is coming up, and this Thursday we actually have the conversation about Project Momentum, if you're familiar with it. But essentially, it's one of those efforts to help schools that may be at risk of not being accredited or have particular challenges. So this Thursday we have a board meeting, and I would love for some of your voices to be reflected. If you want to speak up about any of those topics that the board is talking about this week, next week, you even just saying something like advanced academics being available to everyone is a priority would make a difference. So I would like for whatever tone that's going to be set as a result of the public engagement to be inclusive of voices like yours. So I'll just add the email if you're interested. The slots for this Thursday did fill up, but they do have video slots. So if you'd be willing to, do like a 2-minute video that you submit to that email, they could play it in the board meeting, and you can advocate on anything. You could tell your story, your kid's story, really just to push for expanding opportunity and that kind of thing. So just a way to participate if you're interested.
What time is that meeting at?
So the meeting is going to be Thursday at 7, but yeah, so citizen participation will start probably like half an hour-ish into the meeting. Yeah, it always depends. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. So I thank everyone for hanging out, and have a great rest of the evening and rest of the week.
Thank you all. Good to see everybody this year and meet with the new people too.